Hey, how are you guys? Has someone ever come back from a trip to Switzerland and told you, "Oh my God, Switzerland is so cheap, it's so affordable"? Um, yeah, probably not. Switzerland is known for being like one of the most expensive countries in the world, if not the most expensive countries in the world. Swiss people were known to literally going to like Germany, Austria, France, and Italy to buy like supermarket stuff and just weekly purchases and stuff because it's much cheaper than Switzerland. Swiss people are also known for being very rich. So overall, obviously, the higher prices are compensated by higher wages overall. One thing that Switzerland is also known for is for having a very solid economy and for having a very good monetary policy. And one thing that people normally say, and it's true, is that inflation in Switzerland is fairly low, especially when compared to America, Europe, and especially when compared to like underdeveloped countries. So the question that remains is, if inflation in Switzerland is so low, how come prices are so high? Like, isn't inflation the prices getting more expensive, things getting more expensive? If inflation is low, why is Switzerland expensive if it doesn't have inflation? And just so you guys don't think I'm crazy, I picked up the inflation calculator for Switzerland and for the US. So in Switzerland, if you had 100 francs, like if something cost 100 francs in 1990, then by the end of 2024, it'd be costing on average 140 francs. So 40% inflation. Whereas in the US, uh, if you had $100, something that cost $100 in 1990, by the end of 2024, it would cost $240. So instead of 40% inflation, it's 140% inflation. So as you can see clearly, the US has had a lot more inflation than Switzerland. And question still remains. It's true for most other countries. Other than Japan, Switzerland has probably had the lowest inflation rate long term in the developed world. And so, why are things in Switzerland expensive? And the answer is that, in fact, Switzerland is not expensive. That's the catch. It isn't. In fact, if you live in Switzerland and you earn a Swiss wage, things are quite affordable for you. Obviously, between paying like 2 francs for something in Switzerland and 1 franc for something in Italy, they might as well buy it in Italy. But it's not because they can't buy it in Switzerland. It's just because they don't need to. And in fact, even if Swiss people were forced, quote unquote, to only buy their main things within their own countries, except for like travel and stuff, they would be fine. They wouldn't be starving or anything. And so Switzerland is not expensive. It's only relatively expensive to other countries because other countries are so much poorer than Switzerland. And it's actually exactly because inflation in Switzerland that is that low that actually happens. Because the fact that Switzerland has such low inflation means that their currency is highly valued, and so people want to invest in Switzerland because it's know that it's a safe haven, it's a stable country, it's a stable currency, and obviously as inflation rates differ between countries. So, as for example, U.S. inflation is regularly higher than Swiss inflation. That ends up appreciating the Swiss currency, which in our eyes is seen as Swiss products and Swiss things and things that we buy in Switzerland getting more expensive. But it's not. It's just our currencies, the euro, the dollar, the Australian dollar, whatever. They're getting worse and worse every year. And so every time you go to Switzerland, things seem to be more expensive, but they're not actually more expensive for the Swiss. I mean, obviously, they still have inflation, so they're a little bit more expensive for the Swiss, but it's actually much more expensive for us because we've gotten poorer, because our currencies have been getting worse and worse and worse over time. And so, look at the inflation rates, appreciation rates over time. So, one Swiss franc in 2005 was 83 cents of the US dollar, and now it's $1.30. So, you can clearly see the Swiss franc has been getting gradually more valuable in comparison to the US dollar. And that, like for the American, that means that they feel that Swiss prices are getting more expensive, but they're not. It's just their currency is getting worse. And Americans actually had it good in this graphic because if you compare it like Swiss francs to euros, look at the American one, and now look at the European one. Like all the way back in 1985, it was 0.53 francs for every euro. And now the Swiss franc is officially more valuable than every euro. So 1.04, which is, well, a lot of a difference. And the same thing happens to Australian dollar. Australian dollar was around what it took 1.07 Australian dollars to buy 1 Swiss franc, and now it's almost 2 Australian dollars. It's 1.79. And so all the Australians, all the Europeans, all the Americans, they go to Switzerland and they say Switzerland is so expensive, but it actually isn't. It's just your currency has been getting worse and worse and worse due to inflation, and the Swiss have pretty much just been keeping up with low inflation, good economy, good wages, and virtually none of their prices are actually expensive for the Swiss. And I can feel from far that there's going to be this one Swiss person that watches the video and be like, "No, Switzerland is really expensive, actually," and just no, it isn't. I mean, I don't want to downplay your struggles. Let's say you're struggling to buy food or to pay rent or to pay like health insurance, which is really expensive in Switzerland. Sure, that could be true, but that doesn't mean that Switzerland, like, your struggles are normal. In every country, there are people who are struggling. Like, go to Dublin, Ireland, go to New York, go to LA. Like, things are expensive there and people are struggling there. And relatively, the Swiss are not struggling, even though their prices, by doing conversions, are more expensive, which just means that the Swiss, on average, and by and large, are richer, are wealthier, and their prices on a Swiss wage are just normal prices. Like, if you took like average supermarket prices in Switzerland and divided them by the average salary in Switzerland, and you did that in pretty much every country, I am almost definitely sure that the prices in the supermarket, the ratio in Switzerland, would actually be lower, which means that for the average Swiss, going and buying things in the supermarket is on average less expensive than, let's say, for the average Indian and for the average Brazilian and for the average Canadian. And I know that's true because that's what being wealthy means. It means being able to buy a lot of things on the money you make. It doesn't just mean that things are absolutely the cheapest they are anywhere else in the world. And so, case in point, there's still going to be some complaining, but I think if you want to take one thing from this video, try to fight for lower inflation, because inflation just destroys your money. And Switzerland is an interesting example because it's the one country where it's pretty well controlled. And so you look at it and you're like, oh, things are so expensive. And it's actually, no, it's just your money has been inflated. It's been getting worse. And you wouldn't think things are expensive if you weren't earning a wage in a currency that is constantly inflated year after year after year. But yeah, I'll see you guys around. Hope you guys liked it. And yeah, see you later.